What's up, Ute Nation? Welcome to the Utah Utes Football Digest. My name's Brian Ankrum. For those that watch the channel regularly, you can tell that I'm a new face. I'm really excited to be a part of this and help provide a little more Utah Ute football content this year. Bring a little bit more to all the Utah fans that are wanting week-to-week content within the season. Thanks, Joseph, for reaching out, and there's going to be me and a few others that are going to help out with this. So really looking forward to it. With that being said, we're 6 days away, I guess, as of this morning recording this. Cannot wait. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. Huge game. Florida SEC opponent coming into Rice Eccles. That place should be rowdy, raucous, full. I think everybody's been looking forward to this for a long time, especially with the off season we've had with all the media negotiations and then the conference realignment. I'm so tired of talking about that. So we're not going to. We're gonna focus on the future. I think we're happy to be in the Big 12, but for now, I'm gonna focus on a little bit with the fall camp and what I think we have coming out of that, as well as the Florida game here in 6 days. All right, should we talk about the game now? Can't believe it, 6 days away. This is exciting. So as mentioned, Florida's coming in. They're a big time SEC opponent coming into Rice Eccles. They haven't traveled out west in nearly a decade. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, with their group coming from sea level up to, about 4,500 feet. A lot of people struggle, and I know that they're coming in the day before the game. That was announced yesterday by the Florida staff that they're going to come in Wednesday evening. They're not going to practice in Utah at all. They're going to come in Wednesday evening, is from what I understand. Play the game on Thursday and then fly out Friday morning. So there's going to be a storyline behind that, and we're going to have to see how that plays out. I imagine they'll probably have to have a lot of oxygen tanks with them. It sounds like they've done their research, talking with other professional teams on the best route from going to low elevation to high, and they said it takes about 10 days to actually acclimate. So they decided to just go in, play the game, and get out. That's their focus from my understanding in talking to a few people. But let's talk about the game itself. So the Florida offense, we'll start there. They're gonna look a lot different, especially because Anthony Richardson pretty much tore Utah a new one last year. Not so much through the air, but he was just so freakishly athletic that he was incredibly hard to contain because you had to worry about his arm. That was the main thing. I mean, he had a cannon for an arm. That was always the threat, and if you didn't control the edge and keep contain on him, well, he was gone for a 60. I can't remember his touchdown run, but it was a 60 or 70 yard run, if I remember right. I do have some stats on him. He rushed for 106 yards last year and 3 touchdowns against Utah. So he did it mostly with his legs. With Graham Mertz, I don't think you're going to see that. I think he can scramble here and there, but it's not going to be anything like you saw with Anthony Richardson. And there's probably going to be very little designed around that. Mertz came in from Wisconsin. He played on an offense that was fairly similar to how Utah plays. I think we're a little more offensive minded in the passing game than what Wisconsin is. But as far as what I'm referring to is that they try to win the trenches and they try to control the clock via the running game, and that's what he was there for. he was more of a game manager. Last year, he went for 2,136 yards through the air, 19 touchdowns against 10 interceptions. Not terrible numbers, but not mind-blowing numbers either. I mean, that's kind of a middle of the pack college quarterback, and I'm not saying he's middle of the pack. So Florida fans, don't come at me here. This is just basically, it was kind of based on the system that he came from, why his numbers are what they are. I think he has the ability to throw. He can hit those. He can hit those checkdowns. He can hit those crossing routes. So a guy like Pearsall could be very dangerous with Mertz. Pearsall had a great game last year. He had 4 receptions for 67 yards against Utah. That's going to be an interesting matchup to see, which I'll talk about. When I talk about the matchup on Utah defense, that's going to be one to watch. They have a strong running game. They got Trevor Etienne returning. They got Montrell Johnson, I believe. Very good running back. Yeah, Montrell Johnson. He was kind of the lead back last year. So they have a 1-2 punch, and they have a very, very big and physical offensive line. All right, so let's talk a little bit about fall camp and what we've heard and where the team kind of sits coming out of that. We've only heard what the coaches have basically told everyone in the few media availability sessions that happened during the weeks. Kyle Whittingham keeps everything pretty close to the collar. Doesn't allow media to attend or record anything with the practice itself. So what we have heard, it's been very physical though. I mean, from last year to this year, it was ramped up several notches, according to the coaching staff. A lot of this is attributed to the lack of success against Florida last year. I think a lot of that probably came from having a lot of young players up front, but getting them physical early on, getting them tackling, that's one of the important and main focuses from the coaching staff. From what I've gathered, we missed 27 tackles last year against Florida, and that's just not acceptable for a Utah defense. So they're cleaning things up. Word on the street is the defense looks phenomenal, and I'm really excited about it. The front seven, I think, have greatly improved. A lot of it through just growing up a little bit. We had a lot of young guys up there. And then we brought in Lavani Damani from Stanford, leading tackler last year. He's going to be one of the linebackers. I guess he's an animal, it sounds like. Lander Barton's going to also be that guy this year. He was the freshman of the year, defensive freshman of the year in the Pac-12 last year. I think he could be the defensive player of the year this year. He's could be that good. There's gonna be a tough group to compete with that though. I mean, other teams, but especially even on Utah, you've got Cole Bishop and Sione Vaki, and I think there's a lot of good things that are happening defensively for Utah. I've also heard there's maybe a few guys on that defensive line that might be banged up a little bit. No significant injuries, but just soft tissue issues, beat up a little bit, bumps and bruises, just from the physicality that's happened all through camp. So it's going to be interesting to see. The two deep has not come out yet, so it was supposed to come out yesterday. Waiting on that to see exactly who's going to be in the starting rotation and who's going to be on the second group. So excited to see. Offensively, we don't know what's going to happen with our quarterback. Honestly, it could be one of three right now is what it looks like. It could be Cam Rising, obviously, Bryson Barnes, or Nate Johnson. With Cam, he could go at a moment's notice, it sounds like. he was interviewed the other day by Bill Riley, and Cam basically said that he would be willing to suit up at 5 p.m. on game day if he was cleared by the doctors. That is what it all comes down to. I think he's been maintaining his conditioning. He can run. He obviously can't make any sharp cuts or change a direction or anything, and he can't take contact, but he's maintaining conditioning. He's continuing to go through the reps, his throwing motion. He just, he can't do any live 11 on 11, but it sounds like he's ready to go when that time comes, whenever the doctors can give him the go ahead. The other guy that's pretty exciting to hear about this week is Nate Johnson. He was kind of pushed back in the depth chart a little bit at the start of fall. Well, last spring actually, he had a hamstring injury that kept him out about 3 weeks. That really pushed him back, and he's an electric type of guy. He ran like a 10-30 something 100 in high school. I mean, the guy can fly. At the quarterback position, that's incredible. So really excited to hear that the last 10 days he has really picked it up, and in my opinion, just the way they're talking, it sounds like he might be in the lead for that number 2 role, ahead of Bryson Barnes. So we'll wait and see on game day. That guy, sky's the limit. He's a he's a 4-star blue chip kind of guy out of high school. Competed in the Elite 11 finals. So, I can't wait to see him. He could easily bust off a 70, 80 yard run at a moment's notice, but he can also throw the ball. He's not just a running quarterback. He's a quarterback that can run, from everything that we've heard from the coaching staff. And then you got Bryson Barnes. Bryson is a veteran now. He's a redshirt guy, but he is a leader on the team. This guy leads by example. He's a student of the game. He studies the playbook. I mean, he works on his craft, and I think everyone in that locker room has the utmost appreciation and respect for Bryson, and it's because he commands that respect, through his work ethic. It's not just that though. I mean, he has skill. He can run a little bit. We've seen him do that. He has a great deep ball from everything I've seen. He knows the offense. He knows where people should be. I think it's just a matter of getting those reps. Every time we've seen him in a live situation, he's kind of been thrown in the fire. Yeah, he started one game at Washington State, but if you all remember, that was when Cam banged up his knee against USC. It was the next game. Everything was looking like he was going to go. But at the last minute, Bryson got the start, and really the playbook was designed around Cam starting. It wasn't designed for Bryson Barnes. We haven't seen that yet. So that could be, I have full faith in any one of our quarterbacks behind Cam Rising at this point. But, I guess we'll wait and see. I'm excited. I'm 50-50 whether Cam goes or not. I kind of shift back and forth whether he's starting or not starting on the other side of that 50-50 line. But at this point, listening to his interviews, I'm right at 50-50. I think it could very well happen, and it's going to be an electric atmosphere if number 7 rolls out and you hear Bad Moon Rising blaring over Rice Eccles Stadium to start the game. So I'm really excited about that and cannot wait. So speaking a little bit about their offensive line, I know there's been rumors circulating that they're a little bit banged up and maybe lacking a little depth this year. They had people leave last year, and I know that they might have the injury bug a little bit. I know one of their transfers in had to take a medical hardship transfer out, or a family hardship transfer out. So we're just gonna have to see how they look. I've heard their starting center, a massive starting center, who's kind of the leader of that offensive line, hasn't practiced, the last several weeks. They may just be trying to rest him up. He might have a soft tissue injury, maybe sprained an ankle or something, and they're just trying to make sure he's prepared and ready for the game. I would bet on that, but we'll just have to see who they trot out there. No matter what it's going to be, they're going to be big. They're going to be physical. They're an SEC offensive line. They're known for this kind of stuff. So it's going to be interesting. They're going to try to control the game in the trenches with their running game, I think, and behind that big offensive line. With that being said, let's kind of focus on Utah's defense and see how we're going to match up with the Florida offense. And to be honest, I think we're going to match up very well. This is going to be one of our best defensive lines we've had in several years. It could be the best when it all comes down to it. There's a lot of talent. We got a lot of edge rushing talent. Bringing in Logan Fano was huge. Connor O'Toole is going to be a lot more developed than last year, and if y'all remember, he came on late and was really causing a lot of disruption in the backfield. Van Fillinger, he had a rough first game against Florida, but then he settled in. I think he had 6 sacks before he ended up eventually getting hurt and ending his season about 5 games in. So he should be back. The middle of the defense, I think, could be really good. We've got Junior Tafuna, who, a couple of years ago, he was the defensive player of the year, or freshman defensive player of the year in the Pac-12. We've got Samote Pepa, who's just a massive human up there and can move and physical. He's actually lost some weight to gain a little more quickness, it sounds like, this year, and really excited to see what he can bring too. Behind them, the linebackers are absolutely stacked. You've got Lander Barton, going to be basically the leader of that linebacking group. Him and Kearney Reed. Kearney Reed just does everything right. Like he's probably the true leader. Lander Barton is probably the most athletic. I should say that. Then we brought in, I mentioned it earlier, Lavani Dumani from Stanford. That trio, I think, is going to be very, very electric this year. They're going to be hard hitting. They're going to be smart. They're going to be flying all over the field, I think. Got a little depth behind them too. Got Justin Medlock, who he's just sitting there waiting in the wings. Heard so many good things about him. Really excited about that. So their front and trying to control the run game against our front, I don't see how we get pushed around. I think we've got some big guys. We've got some elite level talent in those positions. It's going to be hard for them to establish the running game, I think, against this Utah front. And that being said, if they try to utilize Mertz's arm, it's going to have to be quick. I think it's going to have to be quick hitters across the middle, some dumps, some outs, quick outs, because those defensive ends and those big guys, those big defensive tackles, are going to be putting a lot of pressure on him. We didn't really do that last year against Anthony Richardson, and it really hurt us. In the passing game, to defend the passing game, looking at the defensive secondary, I'll just start with the safeties right off the bat. They're one of the best duos in the entire scheme of college football, the entire landscape of college football. You have Cole Bishop, who, he's preseason All-American, and then one guy that I'm really excited about, and I think everybody's really excited about, is Sione Vaki. Last year he did phenomenal coming in. He played the nickel mostly, but if you remember back in high school, free safety is his true position, and it sounds like he is looking fantastic. He was listed by I can't remember, somebody did a top 100 freaks in college football, and he was up on that list fairly high. So the way he moves and his decision making and athleticism, he's someone to really watch. Pay attention to Sione Vaki, especially this first game against Florida. He's looking for some revenge, I have a feeling, and it's gonna be exciting. So with that said, the one position I'm pretty concerned about, and it has nothing to do with athleticism, is the position that Vaki moved out of, the nickel position. I think Pearsall is going to be playing that slot receiver, so it's going to be, someone in that nickel that's going to have to defend him. What I think is going to happen is I think Smith Snowden, true freshman, is going to get a lot of playing time. Very, very high recruit last year. Mr. Football in the state of Utah. He's a baller. I mean, he's a 10-500 type of kid. That is if Teo Johnson, who is a redshirt freshman, doesn't win that spot, because they're both fighting for it. And I think they're both going to be kind of interchangeable. Teo's another very, very athletic kid. And from what I think it was Whittingham talking about it, saying Teo is the fastest player on Utah's football team, which is saying something, because we've got a lot of speed guys. So, we're going to need that type of player to wrap up, to smother Pearsall, basically just mirror him. So really excited about that. With their tight end, I didn't talk about Florida's tight end, but they have Arliss Boardingham, which a lot of people on the Florida side are really excited about. Athletic kid who can make some plays and catch the ball. So in order to defend him, we're gonna need a kind of a heavy nickel package, and another true freshman is being talked about, and I'm really excited to see this kid. It's Jonathan Hall out of Katy, Texas. He's a bigger frame, kind of plays like a safety. He played safety in high school. Bigger frame guy, can move, and I think he can really help defend that tight end position. And then looking at our corners, we lost Clark Phillips. Big loss. You lose that type of player, it's hard to backfill. But the way we backfilled this, I think, could be the best possible scenario. Brought a kid in from the SEC at Ole Miss, Miles Battle. He's a big guy, 6'4", true receiver out of high school, and then converted to cornerback. So he moves well. He understands receiver tendencies. Got the length and speed to keep up with anyone. And with these Florida outside receivers, we kind of need that length, because these are all 6'3" to 6'4" type of receivers for Florida. So we've got length with him, and then on the other side, Zamiah Vaughn, who is really coming to his own. He was one of our better press coverage corners last year, opposite of Clark Phillips, and he's just continued to develop and get better as he's in the program and in the system, and he's another guy that's about 6'3", I believe. So he's got the length, he's got the speed to really just keep up with some of these threats on the outside for Florida, because they got 3 other freshmen that I didn't mention, that nobody knows how good they are, but they are very highly recruited type of guys out of the state of Florida, and everything I've heard is they are some really good receivers. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. I really like our chances, and I really like our matchups on defense. So with that said, we're going to flip the script and talk about the Utah offense and the Florida defense. All right, let's talk about Florida's defense a little bit now. They lost some people last year, especially in the secondary, but I don't think that's going to be that big a deal. One of them was Bernie. Everybody remembers Bernie, who intercepted the pass to win the game for Florida last year. We don't want to talk about that anymore. So He was a linebacker. They've still got a good linebacking core. Shamar James, he was all freshman, all SEC freshman selection last year. So the kid can flat out play. He's got another year under his belt, kind of similar to what our young guys got. They spent a lot of time in the weight room, and strength and conditioning played a big factor, I'm sure. And just having that other year under his belt, he's going to be one to look out for. He's going to be disruptive. On the defensive line, they're big. I mean, big is an understatement. They have Cameron Jackson, who from what I see, is listed at 376. He can move. Nobody that big should be able to move that fast. From what I've heard from some Florida people, was that he might actually be over 400. That's scary. That's scary big. That guy's going to disrupt the middle. It's going to be hard for us to establish running lanes up the middle with those kind of defensive tackles. The other one's Caleb Banks, good defensive tackle. Average size 323. Actually more on the upper echelon of that, but it could be very difficult to establish running lanes up the middle. We're just going to have to see. We're going to talk about the Utah offense, obviously, after this, and the offensive line, but it's just something to watch. And then we've got, on the edge, we've got Princely Umaman. I can't say his last name. Princely Uman Malin, I guess is how you pronounce it. I don't want to really crush that name too much, but he's going to be he's a very good edge rush. That he's going to be their best edge rusher this year. Unfortunately, they lost their other guy who was going to be right up there, and both edge rushers were going to be amazing this year. But unfortunately, Justice Boone went down in fall camp with an ACL injury. Hate to see that happen for any of these guys on any team. So wishing him the best and hoping for a quick recovery there. But outside of that, they lost both their free safety, or both their starting safeties, their free and strong safety last year. What they did get is they got R.J. Moten that transferred in from Michigan, and primarily because he had a starting job at a SEC school with a position group that was open. So he's a kind of a bigger free safety, 220 pound, 6 foot free safety. He does well in coverage, but he also comes up and plays in the box a little bit. So he's someone to look out for. With that being said, let's talk about Utah and how they compare with that Florida defense. So the Utah offense, we all know what we're going to talk about. Have no idea what's going to happen at quarterback. Cam Rising, if he's in, the offense, I think, could be electric. A lot of people don't realize this outside of Utah, but I think we all think this is going to be the best team they've ever had, offensively and defensively. I know a lot of people talk a lot about losing Kincaid, which, yeah, it's massive. I mean, he was the number one target last year. Part of the reason we continued to feed him was because there wasn't a whole lot more. There was Vele, but he was covered up on the outside. So if Vele wasn't open, we went to Kincaid. This year, I think there's going to be so many more options, and they're going to be able to spread it out a little bit. I think we're going to really be able to establish the running game. Our running back room is absolutely loaded. Jaquindon Jackson could be the breakout star of the year in college football. So, I mean, everybody at Utah knows about this guy. Outside of that, I don't think many people do, because he basically came in as a quarterback and made that transition from a quarterback to a running back mid-season last year. So there's not a lot on him. He did extremely well at the end of the year. He's a big running back. He's 6'2", 230, I think, with a ton of speed. And think he's really honed in on the craft this year and in the off season and worked on catching the ball out of the backfield and being a part of the passing game a little bit more, which could be scary. But we're not going to have to just pound him over and over and over and over and over. We've got 4 running backs that could honestly interchange throughout the game. Obviously, JJ's going to be number 1. Behind him, you got Chris Curry, who got injured last year. If his ankle is back to 100%, he was one of the best looking running backs early on for Utah last year. He powers the ball up the middle, and downhill runner. Really excited about him, and really happy for him to come back and finish out after that injury last year. That was a big loss. We were already short in the running back room last year, and there were other issues going on. But yeah, really happy to have him. But ahead of him is Mekhi Bernard, who just kind of the all-purpose guy, Swiss Army knife for the running back room. Phenomenal pass catcher. He's showed his versatility and his athleticism over and over and over. Nobody will forget the Rose Bowl a couple years ago when he played cornerback, running back, and had one of the best receptions of the year in college football. That right in the back corner of the end zone against Ohio State. Phenomenal athlete too, and just good kid. Really understands the offense. Really good at pass protection. So he's probably going to be the number 2. And then let's not sleep on Jalen Glover. He was a true freshman last year. Saw his reps. Did fairly well. I mean, he was a true freshman getting thrown into the mix. So he's learned what defenses are doing, learned how to be a little bit more patient, I think. And he's a very, very strong running back with some quickness. So I'm really excited to see what he can do this year. Outside of the running back room, well, actually, let's talk about the running back room a little bit and what it's going to do to open up this offense. Because I kind of mentioned that our offense is going to be able to open things up this year, and by doing that, establishing the running game. That's going to lead into a lot of play action. Utah lives and breathes the play action. That's the go-to for hitting those tight ends across the middle and freeing up receivers. It draws all the linebackers in, and it just opens everything up for the offensive passing game. We still have a good tight end room. We have Thomas Yasmin, who, after seeing a lot more time after Keithy went out last year, he was really looking good towards the end of the year and embarrassed some people. Really, he's a freak athletically and rugby guy, and he's still, he took him a while to learn the ins and outs of the game, but he's exciting. Don't know if Keithy's going to play. He's kind of in the same situation Cam is. If he plays, he lit up Florida last year with 100+ yards receiving. He was the top receiver against the Gators last year. So, I'm hoping he plays, but he hasn't been practicing. So it might take him a while, especially in that position for him to get in. I don't expect him to play, but I could be wrong on that. Then you got Landon King that transferred in from Auburn. Auburn wanted him to be a wide receiver. He wanted to be a tight end. So he ended up transferring in the offseason and came to Utah. And he is a very, very exciting tight end to watch. He's still got 3 years of eligibility, so let's look out for this guy. He's going to be really good. And then bringing in Micah Pittman from Florida State, transitioning over to the wide receivers, that was huge. Give somebody a different look other than Vele, because Vele, he got open a lot last year, but when you only have one, they can target that, and they can put the best corner on it all the time. This is gonna open things up. You can slide Micah in the slot, and good things are gonna happen. And I'm just super excited about the availability of options offensively, and it's gonna, we've had a fairly successful offense the last 2 years. Definitely upper echelon. I think we could be right there again. It's exciting to have these type of options. Things we just haven't had. It's always been one or two guys. So already talked about the quarterbacks. I'm not going to really discuss that again. We kind of know what we're going to get with that, and when it happens, when the time comes, if it's Cam, it's going to be kind of the same type of deal, except he's probably not going to see near the design runs that he saw, especially to start the year. But he commands the offense. He understands what's going on. He has good rapport with all the receivers, and that's going to be obviously option one. And we'll just have to see how the other guys do. But I'm really excited about it. On the offensive line, we talked about their defensive line being massive. Well, our offensive line this year is going to be, I think, the best offensive line we've ever had at Utah cumulatively. And that also includes depth. So we've brought in some phenomenal recruits last year. Spencer Fano and Caleb Lomu were just great gets, and both of them could see some significant playing time this year, especially Spencer. He's on the freshman All-American watch list, so he's going to be really, really good. And then just all across that offensive line, we've continued to develop players. Keaton Bills is still there. I'm really excited. They truly have a 10 deep offensive line rotation, which is exactly what you need up front. If one guy gets tired or one guy goes down, you don't worry about who you send back in to replace him, because they're going to do an equally good job, and that's a good problem to have for an offensive line coach and an offensive coordinator. So I think the coaching staff is extremely excited about that. I know we all are. They should be able to really open up the running lanes for this strong running back core, and as well, protect the quarterback. So I'm excited. That's my breakdown on the Utah offense versus the Florida defense. I'll now move into game prediction. All right, so moving on to the final segment here, which is the game prediction. So how I see this game playing out is I believe Utah will control the game in the trenches. I know everybody talks about Florida's athleticism and their big offensive and defensive lines, but Utah really has a special offensive line this year with a special running back core, and I think they're going to just continue to pound the running game and control the clock, setting up some downfield options in the passing game, including across the middle to our usual tight end suspects, and as well as Micah Pittman in that slot. We didn't really have much of a slot last year. We really missed Covey the last couple years. He was huge in that position for us. We're going to get that back. So a lot like Covey, Micah's a super quick receiver with very good hands. The dude is built, though. He's a lot bigger than Covey, so I think we'll see a lot of broken tackles out of him and a lot of explosive plays this year, I have a feeling. But I think he's going to see quite a bit of action this game, as long as we control the ground game, control the clock. Some of that stuff's going to open up. So that's what I see happening. Score-wise, I think it's going to be quarterback dependent a little bit. So, I think if Cam's in there, honestly, I see it a 35-14 Utah victory. Without Cam, our offense is going to fall off a little bit, which is going to put more pressure on our defense. But I still see about a 28-17 Utah win. So there's about a 10 point differential there between Cam starting and Cam not starting. But I still just think Utah wins this game in the trenches, running the ball, and then defensively, I'm cannot wait to see this defense in action. We've heard so much about them all spring, all through the fall, and they're out wanting some redemption after last year. They didn't like the way they played. They've been very vocal about it. Things are going to be a lot more cleaned up than they were last year at this time when we played Florida, and not having to worry about a quarterback that's going to escape the pocket and beat you downfield with his legs is going to kind of play into the Utah defense. Really, the main teams that tend to hurt this defense over the last several years, going back even further, probably the last 10 years, are mobile quarterbacks. So having Mertz sit back there, traditional drop back or shotgun style quarterback, I think really helps Utah's chances with this, and allows them to put some pressure on him and man up out in the secondary. So those are my game predictions. I can't wait for this game. Everybody's really excited. You can feel it on social media. Everybody's so ready for this season to start. As mentioned, in the opening segment, I think everybody is tired of talking conference realignment and media rights deals, and we're ready for some football. And it's going to be an exciting game. It's going to be an exciting year. The Pac-12 is going to be absolutely electric, with the quarterback play and the 5 teams potentially competing for that Pac-12 championship. So really looking forward to this. Enjoyed this. I hope you all enjoyed watching. If you would, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. There's going to be a lot more content from Utah Utes Football Digest. And with that, so long.